Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Frantastic Friday here on the Bitchuation Room. So happy to have you. So glad you pressed play. So glad you decided to, include me in your dishwashing routine and or, slow walk cool down at the gym. My name is Francesca Fiorentini. This is the show. This is a Frantastic Friday. It's an extra little slice from the Tuesday show, from the Wednesday bonus episode. I hope everyone enjoyed that episode. We dove deep into the Whitney Cummings rabbit hole, tried to get inside the mind there. It's difficult with all the Botox, but we did it. It was fun. So if you missed it, you can still watch it. Patron.com/Bitchuation Room is where you go to support this mini labor of love. We are on the precipice of another Trump administration. And I just want to say, I feel sick. Anyone else? Anyone else feeling unwell? I am sick to my stomach thinking about the oligarchy that is coming to power on Tuesday in just kind of like a tactless way. Like before, American oligarchy was just for very, very respectful, please and thank yous and things like this. And now it's just sort of like, now it's just in your face, no lube oligarchy situation. And it's unsettling and I'm pissed. And so, I just want to name that because I think a lot of us are feeling the same way, and the next 4 years are going to be wild. A lot of us will want to tune out, and I hope that this show and some of the levity that we can bring to the, what are we on, like 15th ring of hell that we're in now, is worth it for you. That makes you feel a little less alone. And gives you some inspiration and ideas for action, really more than anything, in addition to community. So thank you so much for being part of the Frantifa. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. If you want to subscribe to this channel on YouTube right now, or giving this podcast 5 stars wherever you are listening. Without further ado, I came across an excellent article at The Lever, which is an independent, bipartisan, nonpartisan, nonpartisan publication by Lois Parshley. And it's about the LA wildfires and the fallout, specifically when it comes to insurance companies in the state of California, but also around the country. And she did amazing work and discovered that there is a little bit of corruption afoot in blue California, especially when it comes to the people who otherwise should be overseeing the insurance industry. And it's a lot to sort through, but this was an excellent piece, and I'm so excited because I nabbed her to bring in for the next little while senior investigative journalist at The Lever, Lois Parshley. Lois, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me bore you about insurance.
It's a very not boring topic for me. Not that I'm like not talking about like home ownership and things like that, but there's so much fallout of the LA fires, and there's so much misplaced blame that is enraging. And there's so many angles to this, and so I really appreciate this angle, which is about insurance coverage and fire insurance coverage. And a week ago I learned about what is called the FAIR program, right? Which assists the FAIR plan in California, which helps homeowners be able to cover and insure their homes. And I sort of read it and I thought, we talked about it as like, wow, this is really great. Like this is good because so many insurance companies in the midst of climate change are leaving. And I saw a great, I think someone tweeted or something about, like, look, don't believe in climate change, your insurance company does. As evidenced by the fact that they are denying people coverage. They've, my sister-in-law a year ago got their home. They were in Altadena, and the State Farm, canceled their plan too. Back to the FAIR plan. I was like, this sounds like maybe a good thing that Democrats have done in the state to make up for the gaps in the insurance and like stick it to the insurance company. This sounds like the Obamacare of insurance. But explain what the FAIR plan is, because actually what you found out is there's a little bit of corruption that has been going on behind the scenes. I don't know if that's the longest wind up to your article, but let me just bring it up because your piece is called "We Will All Be Paying for LA's Wildfires." Um, Here it is from the Lever. But yeah, where did you start with this? And maybe you can start with the FAIR plan if you'd like.
Of course, yeah. So you may have noticed that there are a lot of extreme weather disasters recently. There have actually been 27 in the last year, in 2024, over $1 billion damages per extreme storm, and that is a lot more than there used to be. So what homeowners are seeing is that their insurance premiums are going up as a result, and a lot of people, like your sister, have found they can't find anyone to write insurance for them at all. And so, what states are doing in response are creating these programs called state insurers of last resort. And California's FAIR Plan is one example of this. They are created for people who can't find insurance through the traditional market. And in California, it's a public private partnership. It's actually run by insurance companies under the state insurance commissioner's oversight. And it offers policies to people who can't buy private insurance. But those policies are often more expensive and provide worse coverage. So,
Now,
as
why
private
can't they? Is
companies
it
like
because
State Farm have left the state.
oh, is it
Sorry,
like,
go
is
ahead.
it because they can't afford it, or is it because they got kicked off of their insurance, their fire insurance before? What is preventing people from accessing fire insurance?
Yes. So the FAIR Plan is only available to people who cannot buy private insurance. So you have to have been declined by a private insurance company in order to go on to the FAIR Plan.
Got it.
In California, that program has grown over 60% in the last year. So a whole lot of people are now in this situation.
Right. Right. So it's either like no one will insure them effectively. Private insurance companies are leaving the state. So then the state government fills in the gaps. But as you're saying, it is also reliant. It's a private public partnership here. And it feels almost like the Cobra of healthcare. Cobra, where it's like we're gonna step in and it's incredibly expensive, but we're gonna like give you healthcare for just a little bit after having been let go or laid off from your job.
Well, it's interesting you make that comparison to healthcare because former insurance commissioner of California, Dave Jones, has actually suggested that one of the solutions to way too many people being on the state insurer of last resort and having really expensive insurance would be to offer subsidies similar to the way that the Affordable Care Act helps make health insurance plans more affordable.
Interesting. Okay, so what did you find when it comes to the insurance commissioner Ricardo Lara? I understand that there was actually a very key piece of legislation or reform that passed. It last year or the year before that impacts recipients of the FAIR Plan or people, homeowners.
So, California's insurance commissioner is currently Ricardo Lara. He was elected in 2018 and received significant contributions from the insurance industry during his campaign, over $270,000. And during his reelection bid, he also accepted $125,000 that were sort of passed through two different LGBTQ plus groups after they received similar amounts from the insurance industry.
Wait, so hang on,
And
time out. So it was like, it looked like a donation from this LGBTQ plus group. It was actually originated from an insurance company. Do you think they did that explicitly to hide that they were giving money to the insurance commissioner and they are an insurance company?
Well, I can't speak to their intentions. That's beyond the scope of what I can speak to, but I can tell you that they donated similar amounts shortly after receiving donations from the insurance industry. So it does look like there may have been some kind of pass-through campaign donation there.
Got it. And so then what did they get for their money? Or again, I guess maybe before that, Ricardo Lara, like what is the insurance commissioner supposed to do of any state?
So insurance commissioners are supposed to regulate the insurance industry. They're supposed to make sure that the companies who are operating in the state have enough money to pay out claims in case there is a storm. They're supposed to make sure that those companies are operating above board. And as these state insurer of last resort programs grow, they're also trying to make sure that those programs are able to operate successfully and provide people coverage.
Okay, so kind of like go after fraud, make sure insurance companies are paying out what they're owing, what they owe people. I know Ricardo Lara is actually going to do a couple of, town hall information sessions around Los Angeles, in the coming days. Ostensibly, this is a good guy. This is a guy on the side of, homeowners and people who've been displaced. But he's also a guy who then received money from the very industry that he is supposed to be regulating. So what did they get for their money, potentially?
So Commissioner Lara, to be fair, is in a really tough spot. Insurers are leaving the state and have been for several years, and that has created a huge problem for the state insurer of last resort plan. It has over $450 billion in liabilities now, and it only has about $385 million in funds to handle them. He is really between a rock and a hard place. And the way he has approached this is, as you mentioned, after several conversations around the state and meeting with insurance industry executives, he has developed a package of reforms that he says are going to help bring private companies back to the state.
Okay.
One of those big changes is in changing how insurance companies are allowed to set their rates. Previously, the state of California, which has some pretty tight regulations compared to other states, wouldn't let insurance companies look at how the climate may change in the future in order to tell homeowners how much they had to pay for their risk.
Okay.
And insurance companies were rightfully pretty mad about that because the historical record is not necessarily a good indicator anymore of what risks your home might face in the future.
No.
So Ricardo Lara decided that companies were now going to be allowed to use these things called catastrophe models, which look ahead and to the future and factor in climate trends.
So in other words, incorporating in like these once in 100-year floods or fires and these events that you mentioned earlier, the 27, extreme weather events that happened last year. So they can factor in climate change into their business model in determining whether or not they cover a household.
Yes. And on the face of it, that is a reasonable thing for a company to want to do.
Sure.
And in return, Lara promised that these companies would significantly expand their coverage in the state, insuring 85% of homeowners in wildfire areas. But if you actually read the regulations fine print, you see that insurance companies have the option to only increase their coverage by as little as 5%. And if they can't do that after 2 years, they're allowed to just basically be like, sorry, we tried. So it doesn't achieve the objective that the commissioner publicly said that it would. Advocacy groups also say that these catastrophe models are expected to really increase rates for homeowners.
Shit, yeah. No, yes. So, but in other words, like if I'm an insurance company and I'm covering like 25% of California now, I would only have to increase the coverage 5% to 30% of homeowners who are asking me, to insure their homes. And that would be considered like, permissible under the commissioner. And then if I can't within 2 years, like increase it 5%, I could be like, sorry, I'm just going to go out of state altogether.
Right. So the program seems quite unlikely to achieve its ostensible goal of expanding private insurance coverage and getting people off the FAIR plan.
Right. So, I mean, and the other question is like, in terms of the FAIR plan, is this a way that the state government is subsidizing the insurance company? Is that effectively what's happening, or different insurance companies?
Well, the state isn't necessarily subsidizing it. It is helping homeowners find coverage when the private market won't provide it. And I should say here that California is not the only state experiencing a huge growth in its state insurer of last resort program. States like Florida and Louisiana also have massive liabilities as people have flocked to their insurer of last resort plans. And in both of those states, neither program has the ability to necessarily pay out those claims if they're hit by a really large storm. It could potentially bankrupt the state program.
Yeah. I mean, it really doesn't feel like a question of if, but when. Like, I don't think this is the last massive fire event Los Angeles is going to see in my lifetime. You know, like, it's going to happen again. The whiplash of climate change in terms of, you know, extreme rain, extreme drought leading to lots of brush. Of course, like the fact that nothing is retrofit for climate chaos and for the extreme weather events, including the electrical grid. It just seems like a question of, like, we are plugging up holes here, and we are playing whack-a-mole. I mean, I know you're saying Ricardo Lara is in a tough spot. I mean, I wonder, you know, what's the way forward kind of thing? Like, where do you think the reform actually needs to lie? How much needs to be done? Can you obligate, you know, companies? I mean, should this even be in private insurance hands at all? Or, you know, like where do, you know, as someone who's written a lot about climate change and how it, and also, like, you know, corporate power, like, what is your assessment of how we proceed, you know, and how state governments would proceed? Like, where do we start pushing, kind of thing?
Yeah, a lot of really smart people are asking that question right now. One thing that jumps out to me immediately is that figuring out what to do with all of this unpriced risk would be a lot easier if we had more information.
Mm,
Unfortunately, the insurance industry has fought really hard to keep that information from being public. The Biden administration issued an executive order in 2021, asking the Treasury Department to collect this kind of information from insurance companies. You know, where have premiums gone up? By how much? How closely does that reflect actual physical risk? And
mm,
insurance companies basically were like, we don't want to do that. That's an unreasonable burden. And so they walked back how much information they were asking for. They actually just released that anonymized subset of that data today.
mm.
And to be honest, there's not a lot of surprising information in it. Across the country, everyone's premiums have gone up, their physical risk has gone up, and state insurer of last resort programs are growing as a result in a way that potentially could impact the national economy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, states would go bankrupt. I mean, we're in a time when Republicans are dangling much needed aid over California's heads, until they, you know, stop being woke, or they stop with the so-called mismanagement. But part of that is, you know, there has already been steps like this FAIR plan, you know, state insurers of last resort, that have stepped in. Like, there is actually a fair amount of management. The question is, can the management actually keep pace with the destruction? You know, it's one thing to manage, and it's another thing to be like, well, you know, this is too big for us. And I think, you know, obviously we know climate change does not discriminate blue or red state, but of course it's these blue states that will get blamed for their own destruction because of who's in power. I mean, the question I have is, like, what if, imagining, like, even more libertarian ideology or politician, you know, were to get hands on LA, were to get hands on California, were to get hands on Cal Fire, were to get hands on the insurance commissioner, um, how could they make it worse?
Well, you don't really have to imagine that. You can go to states like Florida or Louisiana. You can read my reporting about what Louisiana's attempts to deregulate their insurance market look like in response to this exact problem. 1 in 5 homeowners in Louisiana lost their insurance in
Oh my God.
2023, and the state insurer of last resort program grew dramatically. And the state's insurance commissioner decided that the answer was to weaken consumer protections, to make it more difficult for homeowners to sue if their claims have been denied. And so far, his reforms have not resulted in lower insurance premiums. There's a very similar story playing out in Florida. Some of these states are several years ahead of California in attempting to deregulate markets, and so far that hasn't worked for them.
Right. And so yeah, we're headed to this, like, I mean, it's amazing because it's like it is truly hard to see where else you could gouge homeowners or humans for any more money than they've already been shelling out. But again, yeah, you're saying even deregulating it even farther, having more people. I mean, this is quite truly like, privatizing the benefits and externalizing the costs and saying, oh, sorry, you're too expensive to insure. I'm just going to leave that to the state now to insure you. I mean, again, my mind immediately goes to healthcare. But it's almost like it's like a Medicaid program. I mean, the Republicans want to, defund Medicaid, but it's like a Medicaid program, and the program for like the most needy, the disabled. It's like life saving, but it's a last resort. But if obviously Medicaid is a massive investment, I mean that was a decision that was made, to say we're not going to let poor people, new mothers, the disabled just die. We're going to have this intervention. I mean, it is, my mind always goes to Naomi Klein saying, like, this is just never going to be, this has to be a statewide and federal wide intervention when it comes to climate catastrophe and, preparedness. So yeah, I feel you. I mean, we're here in LA, and Rick Caruso, a billionaire mall magnate, is saying that, like, it's all Karen Bass's fault when this guy hired a private firefighting company to fight the flames in his neighborhood. So that's the last question I have. And I don't think you talk about it in the article, but private insurance companies they have private firefighting forces. That's something that's been somewhat reported, but I don't think we know enough about it. Can you shed any light on that?
As part of some private insurer policies, some private insurance policies, as you mentioned, do have clauses about private firefighting services if your home and therefore the insurance policy's coverage is threatened by a wildfire. So that itself is not actually new. That's been around for a long time. Often those are the higher end coverages. And I imagine we'll see a growth in that direction as wildfires continue to increase. But one thing I wanted to bring up about your last point is that sooner or later, this isn't going to be a choice. Like the 2008 subprime crisis, these overlooked risks are setting the stage for the next financial disaster. We could see financial spirals where if people can't afford insurance, it becomes harder to sell homes, home values drop, that destroys property tax revenue at exactly the same time that governments need to write bonds to rebuild after storms or wildfires. That shrinking tax base could lead to rating downgrades, making it cost more to borrow the same amount of money for something like rebuilding a highway or a seawall. And writ large, this dynamic could lead creditors to preemptively pull back from impacted regions like the South or California, posing credit risks to banks and pension plans. Like, it is hard to overstate how sprawling this problem could become or how quickly it might escalate.
So you're saying climate change has like ramifications through the market? I mean, that seems like conspiracy to me, other than the fact that you've proven it and wrote a whole article about it. Lois Parshley, is there anything else, or anything you're working on now, or some other, I'm going to link to all of your reporting, but what should people be looking out for?
Thank you so much for your interest in this. If people are interested in learning more, the Senate Budget Committee just put out a big report in December that you might be interested in looking at where insurance coverage is being canceled across the United States. It draws heavily from my reporting at The Lever, which you can also go read. We are a reader-supported newsroom, so if you like what you read, we'd love your support. And I really appreciate your interest.
Absolutely. Everyone go support The Lever and read Lois's work. I mean, this is just one excellent piece of so many. Again, nonpartisan, reader supported, levernews.com. Here is the link if you're watching live. Thank you so much, Lois. Come back, and thank you for your excellent reporting. Take very good care, and thank you all for being here. That is fascinating, and I just had to get her on because I was going to read the article live to y'all, but now we can hear from the actual reporter, so that's much better. I mean, this is the reality, right? It's like it is not a fringe issue. Climate change destroying markets physically, and just the ramifications of it. I mean, I do not like my landlord, but my landlord is also like, they're canceling insurance policies and this and that. And of course, inevitably, who do you think these higher insurance premiums are going to fall down on if you're a renter? It's going to fall down on us, right? And there's something, before we move on, because I got a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a kind of a robust show. So tuck in, y'all. But, two things are simultaneously happening in Los Angeles in terms of narrative and just like specifically. One is people are unfoundedly blaming homeless people for starting fires that somehow broke out where there aren't homeless people. So that's fun. And obviously the right is doing it. Some maybe on the left are doing it, not really left. While simultaneously, there is not an eviction moratorium in Los Angeles right now. Meaning people are still being evicted from their homes. What if they were in the pathway of the of the wildfires? What if they were in the pathway of the evac zones? Like, it doesn't matter. There is not an eviction moratorium as hundreds of thousands of people have lost their homes. Okay? So chew on that for 2 seconds and then think about how that does or doesn't contribute to, I don't know, the population you love to demonize, the homeless. I wonder. Maybe it's all related. So if you're in LA, please call your city council member right now and tell them to support the measure for an immediate eviction moratorium in the city or in the county of Los Angeles. The other thing I want to say, or I think it's just the city. The other thing I want to say is, right now, Republicans are dangling aid, as I mentioned, for California, and they want to tie that aid to a budget bill that would enshrine the Trump tax cuts forever. No, you know how they expire this year? No. They're going to keep them going, 30 years, 60 years, whatever they want. That allows, among many things, but this was the one that just stuck out to me and has bothered me for a very long time, allows billionaires to write off their private jets, right? It's like a $600 million expense, but you get to write it off under the Trump tax cuts. So you have the very thing that has caused the climate chaos in the world, which is the burning of fossil fuels, the use of things like private jets unnecessarily, the hoarding of wealth, the mass exploitation of workers, the ability to even become a billionaire. You have that tied to aid for the destruction that very thing caused. Do you understand what I'm saying? You understand how much we are enshrining? I mean, America's cooked, right? Physically, morally, economically, we are cooked. But like, it is so cruel and so perfect that is what Republicans are doing right now. But please, mismanagement. Mismanagement. I don't know. Fire doesn't burn like that. I never seen I don't know what embers are. What is even wind? Wind isn't real. Just enraging shit. So let's remember, we only have one enemy, people. And it's not who the Karen on your Nextdoor app thinks it is. Okay. Let's just remember that. Let's see. Let me read a couple comments. Rachel Atwood, are we sure Billy Joel didn't start the fire? It was always burning. Zane the Magic Puffer Dragon TYT mentioning the homeless people was so irresponsible of them, and I was completely shocked when I heard them say the BS. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Don't get me started. I can't go there right now. I'm so pissed. Like, I'm so pissed. Nothing has borne. These are unfounded claims. It is the height of irresponsibility to talk about blaming homeless people right now. I don't have words. I'm too fucking mad. I can't. I gotta do a cool down, walk around the block, but I can't because there's too much chemicals in the air. Thank you so much, Jim 1001. Yes, I've been seeing your messages. Appreciate you. Look, guys, the ceasefire is not happening. Unclear whether there is a ceasefire. On Tuesday was wondering whether or not Trump deserved credit for this. No, it's okay. He doesn't need it. Because undoubtedly Netanyahu is going to walk back from this. And if there's one thing that the Israeli government, if there's the second least likely thing the Israeli government is to do other than vote for a ceasefire, it's respect said ceasefire. And so we know that Netanyahu, in his political, cravenness, needs the far right to stay in power, and the far right is willing to walk away from his coalition government if he goes along with a ceasefire. So, apparently it's going to go. It may go into effect on Sunday, I guess, but you can bet your ass, just like the murdering and the killing has continued since the ceasefire was even discussed. That it will continue, that it will keep going, that they will likely free hostages. And sure, they should free the hostages, but then the genocide will be back on. It'll be genocide game on. That's my prediction. Because I think ultimately, it's funny because Donald Trump might be, he might not openly say he's a Zionist, but he's more of a piece of shit, right? Biden is a piece of shit for other reasons, because he's a committed, bloodthirsty Zionist who's like, yeah, no, whatever, however many tons of weapons, just don't drop the big ones on the kids, please. Don't drop the big ones on the kids. If you could not, that makes me look real bad. But Trump is like, yeah, no, we could just say we're doing this and then fucking not. You could just say there's humanitarian aid and never give it. You could just say we're going to get to stage 3 and full withdrawal from Gaza and never actually withdraw. So you can say whatever the hell you want. I need this politically. I need this to look like a victory for me. But I was particularly struck by the conference with Antony Blinken. Did I not sign in? Oh, bother. The press conference with Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, just a guy who, like, he came into the Secretary of State position and was like, dude, you play the saxophone. You're probably cool. You seem like you believe in, like, international law and, like, a rules-based order and shit. You probably believe in, international human rights. No, he does not. So this was him taking questions. It was a very long hearing on the press briefing, on the ceasefire. And in the middle of it, Sam Husseini, who is a journalist, he wasn't the first person to interrupt. Max Blumenthal of Gray Zone also interrupted. But Sam Husseini has been interrupting a couple of times. And in a moment when he was not talking out of turn, he was waiting, he was listening, 3 security guards pull him out and just grab him by the arms, and they basically proceed to manhandle him and remove him. But here's how kind of the whole thing went down, and it's just the disgusting shame that this motherfucker needs to feel right now. Like, this is what you expect from a Trump administration. This is the kind of treatment of the press that we're probably going to continue to see, right? But this whole hand-wringing, like you believe in fucking liberal democracy, like you believe in the rule of law, like you believe in human rights, and it's so sad, everything sucks for you. Shut the fuck up. We know you're full of it. We know you don't care. And the test is really if you support Israel completely skirting international law or not, right? And so here he is, and this is the interaction with Sam Husseini.
And I want to thank my colleagues, in particular, Jake Sullivan, Bill Burns, Brett McGurk, for their remarkable skill, tireless dedication over these many months of negotiation.
Will you recognize the Geneva Conventions apply to the Palestinians?
And again, I'm happy to address questions when we have a chance. I'm happy to address questions in a moment. Thank you. As we celebrate the return of hostages in Gaza.
So he interrupted and said, do you believe in the Geneva Conventions? It's like, because the quick follow-up is, do they apply in Israel? Do they apply to the Palestinian people?
Including Americans, as we look to relief for the people of Gaza. I'm also thinking of all those U.S. citizens who are held wrongfully, who are hostage in countries around the world.
Do you know about the Hannibal Directive? Miller says he doesn't know about the Hannibal Directive. Do you know about the Hannibal Directive?
Again, I'm happy to address questions.
No, I want him to answer my question.
I look forward to answering
He's going to
questions.
speak for an hour.
Okay, well, we'll let him speak. We're here for him. Thank you.
He gets to make lots of speeches.
Thank you.
Let him answer.
Oh, Matt Miller's coming into the fray. So a woman comes over and asks him to stop. And then Matt Miller's like, shut up. And look, you could make an argument that, yeah, he was being deliberately disruptive. And he didn't want to wait for the entire, preamble of bullshit before asking his questions. And look, Blinken could have stopped down and Blinken could have said something. Blinken could have addressed him, but instead he just kept on going like he's always done, like the coward that he is. And he can, because he also has no answer.
Some questions. Let him answer some questions instead of making another speech every day.
Sir, would you like to be escorted out?
Go away.
You don't have the responsibility to tell me where to go. Do you want to be escorted out or not?
I want him to
Thank you.
answer
Okay,
questions.
then let's be quiet.
I'm a
I look forward to
journalist.
answering questions in a minute.
I'm a journalist. I'm not a potted plant.
Everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions in just a minute. Thank you.
Miller has explicitly told me he will not answer my questions. I'm justified in what I'm doing.
I have no greater pleasure in this job than crossing off a list I carry in my pocket,
We don't want
the
to
names of those who've been arbitrarily detained and unfairly held hostage, unjustly held hostage, and bringing them home, returning them to their.
Okay, I don't know if you're listening, but he's saying he keeps a list of names. Like, this is how one-sided the people in the Biden administration have been. He keeps a list of names of the hostages in his pocket. If you kept a list of the 46,000 civilians who've been murdered by Israel, you would need a bigger fucking pocket. This is some straight, like, he might as well be like, yeah, and then I have some IDF dog tags, right? Like what difference does it make if you keep the names in your pocket other than some bizarre little, like, moral plea and completely discrediting you as a diplomat in this situation? You got a list. Look at who fucking gave that to you, right? Like, what weird, what Hasbara shill gave you that list?
Families returning to their loved ones. Finally, I
Get
just
your
wanted
hands
to share
off
this
me.
morning.
Get your hands off me.
Okay, so he's not even talking. Sam Husseini's not even talking, and you see they're like, we're gonna just remove him. We're just gonna get him off. So Blinken's just talking. Sam Husseini's not saying anything.
Finally, I
Get
just
your
wanted
hands
to share
off
this
me.
morning.
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Answer a damn question.
I look
Do you know
forward to
about the
answering
Hannibal
questions in a few
Directive?
minutes.
Do you know about Israel's nuclear weapons? Everybody from the ICJ. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I am asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions, and so I'm asking
Please, sir,
questions.
respect the
Was
process. We'll have an
This is so sick. Like, you could say right in, it is in your capacity right now. Let's say you want him gone. Please don't hurt him. Sir, can you stand up and leave? You've been disruptive. That is a perfectly good way to handle it. I don't believe in throwing Sam Husseini out, but you could totally do that. Instead, he just respect the process anyway, and just sort of like disgustingly watches on as 3 security officers haul this man out. This elderly journalist, they haul him out, and he's like, yeah, that's what happens when you don't respect the process. I mean, look, guys, This is Trumpian. This is Trump shit. Okay? This is the kind of stuff we're going to see under Trump. But let's all remember that we have been seeing it under Biden, but under and specifically reserved for one particular issue.
Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders. You
Please, sir, respect the process. Thank you.
respect the process. Respect this process. Well, everybody from Amnesty International, to the ICJ saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal, why aren't you in the Hague? Why aren't you in the Hague? Why aren't you in the Hague?
You know what? I hope we live long enough to make sure. I don't know if he's going to go to the Hague, but for this motherfucker to know that he was on the wrong side of history. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy's shame face. I mean, that is a lot that's a lot of dead babies bottled up right there. That is a lot of carnage. You think you and I have seen carnage? Who do you think the first people who can see everything? What do you think the fucking State Department has its eyes on? What do you think they've seen? You believe in a rules-based order. You believe in process. This guy's telling a journalist about process while they're skirting international law, while they're continuing to send now $8 billion more in weaponry to a genocidal state. Respect the process? You respect nothing. You respect nothing. And in fact, you and the entire Biden administration simply picked up where Donald Trump left off when it came to Israel-Palestine, when it came to Palestinian human rights. You continued the Abraham Accords. You didn't move the embassy back from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. You allowed all of this to continue. Hook, line, and sinker. You went along with it. The biggest lie is that Biden broke from Trump on the border. When it comes to militarism, Biden never broke from Trump. And so, now we're getting the real deal, right? We're going to get the real thing. And it's going to be worse. It will absolutely, there's more babies and heroes to kill. And if you guys don't know, learning about the Hannibal Directive. The Hannibal Directive, and the reason it's relevant is because on October 7th, I covered the news that day. On October 7th, especially outside of the Nova, music festival, you immediately saw like lines of cars absolutely like decimated, completely incinerated from clearly what could only be described as a missile, right? A missile from the sky. That's the only thing that does that. And so the immediate reaction was like, gee, I didn't know like Hamas had like, helicopter or like missile capabilities like that. Maybe a rocket launcher, but I don't even know if they had that many. Like, Jesus, that looks insane. And the Hannibal Directive might be the culprit. In fact, the culprits, it looks like, were the IDF itself. Because the Hannibal Directive says that we would rather kill Israeli hostages than and specifically when it comes to Israeli military personnel, we'd rather have them killed than have them taken alive. That's what the Hannibal Directive says. It prioritizes their own supposed national security over the lives of their own soldiers. So of course they're going to do that over the lives of their own hostages. And does that not ring a little bit true in the last 15 months? Don't you think Israel's been putting politics and so-called national security over the lives of these hostages and their families? Yeah. So we'll see if on Sunday, just like we'll see if TikTok is banned, all the things come true. And all the people who said TikTok was spreading a bunch of truths about Palestinians and must be banned. And we can't talk about ceasefire. That is a dirty word. Do not mention absolutely not. Now they're doing a ceasefire. So didn't everyone get their way? This will be great, I'm sure. And look, I'm not going to say that stopping the bombing even for a moment isn't a good thing, but again, we will see how long Netanyahu respects this. And we'll see, of course, there will be no consequences should he violate it. Thank you, Benjamin Morrill, for your super chat. Rage Rock for now, thanks for your super chat. Even if the ceasefire supposedly is enacted for a while, does that mean annexing the West Bank or war with Iran leaves Netanyahu's mind? No. Does it mean that the war for greater Israel is gone? Of course not. I mean, it's disgusting to say this, but as someone who doesn't, because I predict the U.S. will be involved in a hot war in Iran. If maybe not, it might be more of a drone war, but within a year, I give us about a year to get involved with Iran. Marco Rubio's testimony was very, very clear on that in terms of how he feels about Iran. But no, I would almost rather, like, I'm like, at least it's a fair fight. Anyone who talks about the fighting or the war in Gaza, it's like, no, these are sitting ducks. These are civilians. These are children. I mean, it's amazing, like, when you talk about, like, the ceasefire, oh, celebrations were had. Yeah, there were celebrations, but do you notice a lot of them were just children celebrating? Because it's quite literally the youngest population on planet Earth. Let's maybe talk about TikTok a little bit, because it is, if the ceasefire has been billed as a win for Donald Trump and the Biden administration set everything up to effectively hand Donald Trump what looks like a victory on Israel, on Gaza, then TikTok is going the exact same way. So the Supreme Court ruled today that they will uphold the banning or forced sale of TikTok. That the free speech of of TikTok, the corporation, as well as the free speech of the people on it, does not matter. Now I've seen multiple analysis, like some analysis that says maybe it's a good thing because, like, you know, corporate free speech should not be a reason, should not be like a defense, as people who don't believe the corporations are people and shouldn't have those rights. I think the rights of the users is a little bit different. And of course, we all know that the entire TikTok ban is bullshit. The entire TikTok ban, started by Trump as an anti-China crusade, continued by Biden as an anti-China crusade, but then got a lot of traction after it was found that so much information about the occupied territories, Palestine, Palestinian people, the, occupation in general, the apartheid of the region, that was going viral on TikTok, and people were getting hella woke to the occupation vis-a-vis TikTok, and they were sharing information vis-a-vis TikTok. And so suddenly a bill that had been dead, especially dead in the Biden years, just found new life. And good old comedian Sacha Baron Cohen got on a call with Congress and was like, you need to ban this. Yep. Because they're doing an anti-Semitism. So that meant something for Trump. Simultaneously, Trump has people in his orbit, people hanging around Mar-a-Lago who want to buy TikTok, right? So the fact that Biden was seen as the TikTok enemy, and the fact that, they say it's because Trump says this bullshit and we'll listen to it and then we'll push back. But here's Trump's rationale, allegedly, for now possibly wanting to save TikTok, because he said this after the ruling came down. Oh, no, might be. He said this after the ruling came down. Supreme Court decision was expected and everyone must respect it. My decision on TikTok will be made in the not too distant future, but I must have time to review the situation. Stay tuned. I must have time to sell this to the highest bidder. How can I make this work for me personally? And here's his rationale, allegedly. I think this is on Newsmax, for why he might actually save TikTok.
I will make a decision. I must say, I was on TikTok for the election, and I won the young people by 36 points. No Republicans ever won the young people, and I won by, you saw that, one of the best groups. I won by 36 points. I was on TikTok. I had TikTok Jack working for me. He was a young guy, 21 years old. He was great. And we won young people. We won just sort of about everything, but we won young people. And I think that's a big, a big credit to TikTok. So I'm not opposed to TikTok. I think, let's see what happens. I really have to wait to see what happens at the Supreme Court, because nobody knows what they can do and who's going to do it until they hear from the Supreme Court. They're going to be making a ruling pretty soon.
And until then, he's waiting, because he's playing a few billionaires off one another. He's playing a few hedge fund managers off one another based on who he wants to allow to purchase TikTok. Now, that was also peppered in with a whole lot of lies about him winning the youth vote by 30 points or 36 points. He didn't win any age category of voters under 50. Kamala Harris won under 30 voters by 54 to 43. Voters in their 30s by 51 to 45, and they tied among voters in their 40s. And then Gen X really let us down over here. So if anything, he made 13 points of improvement with the youth vote, but there's no way he carried the youth vote. And also, have you guys been on TikTok? People are like, ew, you're not an abolitionist, gross. They're left. You know what I mean? They're like big old lefties. They don't fuck with MAGA. I mean, not the shit that I see. That there's a reason. There's a reason that there's a lot of, pro-Palestinian sentiment. It's these are young kids. Let's see. Rage Rock says, I hope people who do well financially on TikTok can transfer their success to another platform, because I love for Elon to buy it. Then we do full boycott on it, and that sends its value to zero. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'd be very difficult for people to boycott TikTok. It's all they know. But this was a TikTok that was making the rounds that I particularly liked.
Fascist countries ban apps. Fascist countries ban websites. Fascist countries ban apps and websites under the guise of threats to national security, when every other country knows it's about suppressing the free speech of its citizens. If the government believes that a single app could, quote from the hearing on the 10th, skew the perspective of American citizens to be anti-American, maybe the real problem is that American citizens are already in such a state of political unrest and unhappiness that our government is scared a single foreign influence could tip the scale and have it all be over.
I mean, that's effectively what the Biden administration did. They were so afraid. I mean, let's just track it. The Biden administration on the TikTok ban, it was spurred by Palestine, and they behaved exactly the way AIPAC behaves every time a congressperson, like a freshman congressperson, dares to vote present on anything that has to do with voting for more weapons or, whatever, some, trumped up anti-Semitism bill. They are like, oh, hell no. You voted present? Oh my God. Present is just it's just the next step to voting no. And then they pour millions of dollars like they did with, Jamal Bowman into George Latimer's campaign. That's what they run so scared. They overreact. That's when you know your project is hanging on by a thread. That's when you know you've lost the public sentiment. So she's absolutely right. I mean, if this were any other country, if this were China trying to ban Meta, right? If this were, like even Brazil tried to block X for a while. I think they did successfully for a little bit, and then they weren't able to. Like, if this were any other country, we would call it exactly what it is, which is an authoritarian move. And so, of course, I don't want anyone to ban TikTok. But again, what's going to happen is that Trump is going to be the guy who unbanned TikTok, but then delivered it to maybe Elon Musk or to some other, rich prick, right? Who's going to make it even more censorious, fuck the algorithm like crazy. Although you can't even say things like death on there. I don't even know. Like that's what's going to happen. It will just be another X capture. It'll just be another right-wing platform capture. But I super agree with Rage Rock for now that there should be a broad boycott. I've been like, where's the next thing? Because I'm trying to go. I mean, is it just Patreon? I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, maybe we just do maybe I'll just post everything on Patreon and people can check it out there for free, or that, they're paid members, but I fuck with Blue Sky, obviously, but it's so sick. And of course, just because we hadn't gotten a moment to talk about him, or to him, although I did see him in Palo Alto, California once, and I did scream out the window, Zuckerberg, and I want everyone to know that. Mark Zuckerberg is out in these streets. I think Tommy Vitor said he looks like a Molly dealer, and I think that's very funny, and I think that's very true. And here is Mark Zuckerberg. Now, I want everyone to remember, in 2016, when I was working at Newsbroke, we were tracking the way that Facebook was absolutely radicalizing people and allowing misinformation to spread. Misinformation about Hillary Clinton, misinformation, she is the devil that eats babies in pizza parlors. All of that stuff spread on Facebook in 2016. And Mark Zuckerberg, in addition to what happened in 2016, I believe 2017, the Cambridge Analytica story broke, which was that if you use Facebook to connect to other apps, they were selling your information to external apps, which again, I guess in 2025 doesn't seem that crazy, but they were specifically selling it to Cambridge Analytica that was psychographing, categorizing us based on our political preferences and our and all that, in order to then market propaganda to us. And specifically, it was a pro-Trump, fucking Bannon-esque, Nigel Farage, it was some, cohort of libertarian fucks. That's what was happening. And so, do you remember that scandal? And that's when I was like, I'm done with Facebook. I'm off. Except for Instagram. I mean, I do dabble, and I'm sorry. But so after 2016, when it was very clear there was misinformation, if I'm getting my timeline right, Zuckerberg already decided once Trump was elected that he was not going to have an editorial board review Facebook posts. So it was in the middle of the election cycle. It was 2016. In the middle of the election cycle, they decide they had a board of former journalists and editors and whatnot from a smattering of reputable outlets that would basically review some of the content. He decided to get rid of that That's when all the misinformation came. Then 2017 Cambridge Analytica shit broke, and all of his credibility was fucking dust, because it was like, you have radicalized people. You said you wanted, he basically was in the bag for Hillary Clinton, definitely more of a lib. And then it was like, oh shit, all the shit that I made money off of in 2016 has led to Donald Trump. I'm going to start now Facebook's only going to be about family. Remember, they were like, no more politics, zero politics, none of that. No memes. It's all going to be like posts about your family and, just like kid pics, nothing but kid pics. And so then all the algorithm of anything political got completely, demonetized and demoted. And I know because we were doing a lot of political content at the time through AJ Plus. So that was where he ping ponged. Then, of course, the money slowly creeps back in. And 2020, Trump's obviously on Facebook talking mad shit. He goes to the White House to meet with Donald Trump. Trump's talking mad shit about the 2020 election, on and on and on and on. You should all watch the Into the Storm documentary over on HBO. But in part, all of the misinformation that the Trump administration and everybody else in the Republican Party was allowed to, promote on Facebook, in part led to the, all the election lies and the big lie and the whole thing. And the storm in the Capitol. And after the storm in the Capitol, of course, Zuckerberg's also like, oh shit, let's kick Donald Trump off of Facebook. But of course, because we have no government, because we have no deep state that actually does its fucking job, we're supposed to forget all of these things ever happened. The misinformation, the selling of our data to foreign actors who are psychographing us and directly targeting us based on our counties and where we live, not caring where that money comes from, not caring who's behind it, just as long as we're feeding, buying Facebook ads and buying Facebook ads. Because we don't have a DOJ that actually held people accountable on Jan 6, we're back in it. We're right back here. And so you're back to Zuckerberg now going like, actually, I do really like, and I don't know what's in this nerd's heart. I don't know who he is. I don't give a shit. He wants money. That's all he cares about. But so look at him. He wants money so bad. This is like the final scene in Grease. My guy's coming back like, you're the one that I love. You want to what I love. You know what I'm saying? He's coming back. He's got the tight pants on. He's smoking the cigarette. He's trying to be all hard. Right? Like he really thinks he's got this. He's like, no, I'm going to change for you. I'm going to change for you. You don't got to change for me. I'm going to change for you. I am happy. I did a lot of Mark Zuckerberg hair jokes. I made fun of him a lot. But him growing out his hair was a good idea. I fully support growing out the hair. So I'm not about to knock that. The chain and the like the sort of like unmarked t-shirt, it's not working. It's not working. But here he is talking about the culture of masculinity in the workforce and needing a less feminized workforce. He's on Joe Rogan, of course.
For me, it's just, I think a lot of the corporate world is like pretty culturally neutered. And I just think like having, I grew up, I have 3 sisters, no brothers.
What the fuck does that mean, culturally neutered? This is all bad.
I have 3 daughters, no sons. So I'm like surrounded by girls and women like my whole life. And it's like, so I think,
hell yeah, I'm surrounded by girls, dog. Like, they said I couldn't get girls, then I just made some. Like, I'm no big deal, but I got 3 sisters. Girls, I'm always around girls. You know what I'm saying? Oh boy, this is bad. He has not thought this through.
I don't know. There's something, the kind of masculine energy, I think is good. And obviously, society has plenty of that, but I think corporate culture was really like trying to get away from it.
Okay, guys, I'm so sorry, but the idea that there's not enough masculine energy in corporate culture, there's so much masculine energy in corporate culture that when you first start working at a corporation, whether it be McDonald's or whether it be JP Morgan Chase, they have to show you a video that's like, hey, it's not okay to touch women. You're not supposed to hit them on the butt. You know, hey, you, don't hit ladies on the butt. Like, there is a lot of there is so much masculinity that they have to tell you not to do sexual predation in the office. To say nothing of how corporations are run and who's on the board and who's fucking promoted and what are the stats now? It's like, 90% of CEOs or maybe 98% of CEOs in the United States are men. To say nothing of all the palling around after work drink bullshit you got to do, all the balls that you got to fucking coddle to get anywhere. You know what I mean? Just like this, it's so masculine, and it's obnoxious for men and women. It's not just obnoxious for women. It's obnoxious for everybody. What about how cold they keep it in the office? Remember? That's for men. Also, yeah, it's like really masculine. I mean, it's really feminine. We don't have like a masculine. I'm sorry, my guy. Did you miss the Me Too movement? Were you or was that another story that you suppressed on your fucking platform? Okay. Did you miss what that entire thing was about? It was about toxic masculinity in the workplace, i.e. sexual predators. Fucking ridiculous. I can't. I know I'm swearing too much. It's bad. Okay.
And I do think that there's just something, it's like, I don't know, all these forms of energy are good. And I think having a culture that like celebrates the aggression a bit more has its own merits that are really positive.
I just like, why can't we, break out and like, remember in the 90s, we could just go like, who? Like, why can't, I feel like we need like a little bit more whoing, and I feel like, just we need be a little bit more aggressive. Like we need, like, my guy, you, like, your version of aggressive is like, jerking off to some like a fucking coworker who like thinks you're creepy and weird because you breathe heavily in her cubicle and you just angrily, like, that's as angry as you get, is just angrily being mad. She thinks I'm weird because I asked her what her bra size was, and I'm just being a little aggressive. Like, that's this guy's energy, guys.
And that has been a kind of a positive experience for me. Just like having a thing that I can just like do with my guy friends and like, and it's just like, we're just like beat each other a bit. I don't know, it's good.
Beat each other? You want to beat each other? I think it's good to beat each other, we gotta, like, this is also like real alien vibes, like, send down to earth, this is how act masculine, the males behave in this way. I just think we need to beat each other, right? And the aliens in the spaceship were like, that wasn't good. They're just like, who told him to say that? Was it you, Charles? Not me. Like, very Simpsons aliens are like, what the fuck did we do here?
It is good.
Yeah,
I agree.
I
it's good. It just, I could see your point though about corporate culture. How
Joe Rogan can see the point about corporate culture, having never been in an office a day in his life. He really gets the corporate culture thing.
When do you think that happened? Was that a slow shift? Because I think it used to be very masculine. And I think it was kind of hyper aggressive at one point.
No, and look, and I think part of the intent on all these things, I think, is good, right? I do think that if you're a woman going into a company, it probably feels like it's too masculine. It's like there isn't enough of the kind of the energy that you may naturally have, and it probably feels like there are all these things that are set up that are biased against you, and that's not good either, because you want women to be able to succeed and like have
just not too much, you know, but like their success can't take away from my need to beat other men.
Companies that can unlock all the value from having great people, no matter, you know, what their background or gender, you know. So, but I think these things can always go a little far. And I think it's one thing to say we want to be kind of like welcoming and make a good environment for everyone. And I think it's another to basically say that masculinity is bad. And I just think we kind of swung culturally to that part of the kind of the spectrum where, you know, it's all like, okay, masculinity is toxic. We have to like get rid of it completely. It's like, no, like it's both of these things are good, right? It's like you want like feminine energy, you want masculine energy. Like I think that's like you're gonna have parts of society that have more of one or the other. I think that's all good, but I do think the corporate culture sort of had swung towards being this somewhat more neutered thing.
Neutered, dickless, ballless. You took my balls, Sheryl Sandberg. Thank you for your work. Okay, can I just say, as a feminist and as kind of a radical feminist, as an anti-capitalist feminist, there is part of me that thinks about Sheryl Sandberg and just goes, look at it. You tried to lean in. You tried to lean in into this beautiful corporation that you thought would love you back, but ultimately does not. Sheryl Sandberg's entire thesis for Lean In was basically telling women that it was their fault, that it was their fault that they weren't getting promoted. It was their fault that they were not getting paid equally in the workplace, that all they had to do was to lean in, and then they would be, you know, everything would be fine, and they would be able to lean in over the you know, over the sexism and the patriarchy and the not paid, you know, equal pay, and everything would be fucking fine. It was mostly all in their heads. They just need to lean in and make sure when you do lean in, you've got massive cleavage. Okay. But that was her entire thing. And Sheryl Sandberg, the like CFO for Facebook for so long. And it's just like, again, these corporations are masculine. They are patriarchal. I don't even want to call it masculine. It's such bullshit to be like a masculine, feminine, whatever. Everyone is masculine. Everyone is feminine. Listen to me. How often do I say dude and fuck and hella? Masculine energy, no doubt. But like also Northern California energy. But like it is a patriarchal space. It is a patriarchal space, and all of the necessary programs, I think, to make it a less patriarchal space also show that it is a more productive space. I can't remember the studies, but there have been so many studies that when there are more women and there are more people of color, when it's more diverse, it enriches a workforce. Actually, women tend to get more things done. That was definitely true in politics, right? So again, this incoming 119th Congress is one of the houses with the least amount of Republican women in it, which is wild, and none of them have any positions on any. They're not heading up any committees, and it's like, you know, Republicans are like, oh, like the women are like, well, that's cause. Like they have no answer, right? It's because their party fucking hates you, dude. It's because your party is about patriarchy. Same thing with corporations, right? But anyway, what I was gonna say is like the corporations, I did this story like in 2017 or 18, that governments that have more equal representation between men and women actually get more done. That women are often more quick to work with other people. They compromise. They are more efficient in that, and they get shit done. And I mean, I can definitely vouch for that in my corporate culture experience. Also, women won't restate the thing you just said and pretend it was their idea. That's a pure dude thing to do. So I just, you know, it's a little bit of a ha-ha Sheryl Sandberg moment. But just before we leave this, apparently, you know, a lot of these a lot of the impacts are being faced by like people who work in Silicon Valley. So I just want to share this little piece of the Salon article that talked about like the war on woke in tech industry is actually impacting the workers specifically. They cite X, where Musk, having stereotyped middle-class workers as elites, not deserving of respect, felt justified in stripping them of their basic worker rights. He demanded they work long overtime hours without pay or sleep, insisted they work 84 hours a week. While he sits around and tweets, he disregarded their expertise, abused them verbally, made them the situation so intolerable that many were forced to leave. He made them betray their basic values by catering to neo-Nazis and other scum that he let loose on Twitter. Because the desk workers of Silicon Valley are middle class, they don't rate much sympathy in the current political discourse, which is far more focused on the partisan tug-of-war of working class voters. But it's playing in the hands of oligarchs to reject the needs of middle class workers. The real battle between working people, whether college educated or not, and the hyper wealthy who want to suck up all the money for themselves, and leave the people who actually do the labor behind. People like Musk and Zuckerberg save their rhetorical fire for the middle class desk workers who staff their companies, but the efforts to redistribute money upwards will hurt everyone, the working class most of all. This was demonstrated. Okay, we're talking about a hearing. So apparently there's been a crackdown on free speech within Meta since the announcement. The company deleted messages on its internal communication system that criticized the newly appointed board member Dana White, a Trump-loving professional fighter who was taped hitting his wife. Jesus. The company locked down access to policies and training materials to prevent workers from sharing them with the press. There have also been obnoxious moves that read as evidence slights to employees, such as removing tampons from men's rooms, which serves no other purpose than to signal to trans people they aren't equal at Meta. Zuckerberg also announced he's moving the company's moderation teams from California to Texas, where he argues, quote, there's less concern about the bias of our teams. This means forcing people to leave a state that's friendly to human rights to move to one that bans abortion and restricts queer inclusive health care. Even those who don't move, the message is loud and clear. Zuckerberg is signaling his contempt for their professionalism and intelligence. Oh, the big boy removed a tampon. Oh, the big boy's such a big boy. Big boy, big masculine man boy. He removed tampon. Again, like, these are not fucking culture war issues. They're just a straight class war issue. But before we leave corporate culture, I mean, this has gotta be the article of the week. As we all brace for the return of the Trump once again. All right, I'm sorry. And no one should ever sully that song with Donald Trump's name. This article really took the cake, even as we await far worse things, and maybe we have time to get into some of the confirmation hearings. Before we leave, Zuckerberg Charlie Dingemir said Zuck was neutered long before girls got to him. Lol. That dude neutered from birth, you know? Also, thank you, Socialism or Barbarism, for giving out 5 communities gift subs over on Twitch. Nothing could be more apt than your handle name. Omega Shenron Dragon, subscribe for 15 months. Happy 15 months. On the day of my sub to the other channel runs out, but I want to I want to stand firmly here because Fran trashes these rat fucks. Also because Fran has the best hugs when she comes to Brooklyn. Did I give you a hug? That will cost you. Ravenlight 303, thank you for resubscribing with Prime, and also Ice Queen Kiki over on Twitch. Thank y'all. Corporate America embraces a new era of conservatism under Trump. Is it new? Is it new? To curry favor, okay, companies are reshaping how they interact with society, and tech billionaires, financiers, and heads of well-known consumer groups are leading the way. It's a mirror image of the surge in support for social justice causes after a police officer killed George Floyd in 2020. That's actually a pretty good analysis, Financial Times. I think that we are definitely living in the backlash era to the George Floyd uprisings. That we all must be paid, we must all be made to suffer, especially Black Americans, anyone in the crosshairs of a discriminatory policing system. We are all made to suffer for the audacity of having taken the streets to say, you should not murder unarmed civilians. We are being punished for that because apparently all the police were defunded. And you know what? Everyone became trans because of it. So that's why we're being made to suffer. Oh, and also a police precinct was set on fire in Minneapolis. Oops, that was done by a right-wing guy from the Boogaloo group, from the group that wants to deliberately create acts of insurrection and violence in order to trip off the race war. But we don't talk about that, and that's fine. We don't have to talk about that. Nobody has to actually find out who set fire to the precinct, even though apparently there were fires everywhere, probably started by homeless people smoking crack. Obviously, last week, Amazon released its behind-the-scenes documentary about Melania Trump, produced by the incoming First Lady herself. Oh, not in any money way. Trump's return has also spurred a wider shift to more conservative social and political stances and a celebration of capitalism. Celebrate. Dude, you know what? In a celebration of capitalism, let's burn down some forests. Fuck yeah. Let's flood a city. Woo! Mother Nature is celebrating capitalism every goddamn day. She just has a fun way of expressing it. Companies are doing away with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, cutting support for racial diversity charities, and dropping out of climate action groups. Cool! They're also clearing anything that could be seen as, quote, woke from public statements, corporate documents, and advertising. And let me just say, since we're talking about the George Floyd movement, these corporations are as fucking hollow as Nancy Pelosi kneeling in a kente cloth. And what happens is, because corporations are ubiquitous, because we've got streaming platforms, and because they are so eager to use empty and hollow racial justice to paper over the fact that they underpay people, the fact that they don't even hire Black people or people of color, the fact that they are exploiting their workers or preventing them from unionizing. It is all show, okay? It is all show for them. And the BLM movement was easily co-optable, and so they did it. Now, we're still waiting for them to co-opt the Palestine Solidarity Movement. I mean, I've been waiting for that, Palestinian Voices splash page from Amazon for a while now. I've been waiting for, Chuck Schumer to come out in a keffiyeh. But, I don't think we're going to see that. But let us separate the corporate shillery from the actual demand of real police reform and moving money out of city budgets into things that actually protect people and not over-police them. But that's okay. See, because you know what? It was all for show. And now that now that the alpha males and the white alpha males have won, now they're getting rid of them. Now they're getting rid of the diversity and equity inclusion programs because they don't want to be seen as woke. To some on Wall Street, ooh, bastion of liberal thought. Bastion of thought more broadly, the shift is a breath of fresh air. Bankers and financiers say that Trump's victory has empowered those who felt they had to self-censor or change their language to avoid offending younger colleagues, women, minorities, or disabled people. Quote, "I feel liberated," said a top banker. This is my favorite. I love how this person does not have a name. It is anonymous, but it's a top banker. "The monopoly man feels liberated. We can say retard and pussy without the fear of getting canceled. It's a new dawn. Then we pass go and we collect $200 and $200 from you. Hope you land on free parking, pussy." I mean, this is, guys, do you understand? This is the id of the MAGA movement. Now we can say these words without getting canceled. This is the height. Now, whatever you're facing in your life, you can't make ends meet, you lost a job, you need some sort of medical procedure you don't know how you're going to pay for, a family member is sick, you're facing some economic hardship, your boss won't let you unionize, you're in the path of a wildfire, whatever you're going through. Think of the top bankers who can't say the R word, who can't say pussy. Have you actually thought about them as you're working for minimum wage? Because I feel like you are not the real oppressed person here. Yeah. They had to hide their bigoted true selves in the closet. Can't think of anyone who's had that problem before. Yeah. Imagine hiding in the closet. Imagine not being able to be who you are and live your truth and love who you want to love. Imagine being discriminated against for saying words like birthing person. It's, you know what? Like, some people should like the 13-year-old to Wall Street pipeline. Like, what is it? You know what I'm saying? It's like you are like an angsty little angry 13-year-old, and then you go straight to Wall Street, straight into finance, right into finance. They really want you. And I say that as someone that's been hit on by a number of Wall Street bankers. That's not to brag. If you are literally in Midtown, or if you are in Lower Manhattan between certain hours, you too will be hit on by a Wall Street banker. Pigeon. Okay, I just have to do a smattering of hearings because there's been a lot, guys. Next week is going to be awful. Next week is going to suck so hard. Next week, I don't know what. We need to get your favorite movie and your favorite snack. We need to, go on a walk, do some yoga. I'm just talking to myself. We need to tuck in because next week is gonna suck. The confirmation hearings are underway. It's just a smattering of Peakton High School assholes who have zero qualifications and somehow want these top jobs in order to hollow them out or to go to World War III. Unclear which one. Now, there's a lot of moments throughout the hearings. I do want to focus on Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, and Pete Hegseth, because they're the most fun. There's also a Rubio. That's a fun one. All we can hope for is their idiocy preventing them from doing the worst things. But these are the worst people, and they will be confirmed. I think Pam Bondi is probably the most corrupt when it comes to how much of a Trump bootlicker she is, failing to actually prosecute Trump University and their crimes of stealing, hundreds of thousands of dollars from people, millions of dollars from people in Florida. That was done years ago. So Pam Bondi maybe has like the biggest conflict of interest, if you will. I think we need to remember, even though these are appointees, like, these people are supposed to represent us. Like, they are not supposed to be like Donald Trump's, chess pieces. That's not what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to represent the people. They are supposed to uphold the Constitution. If you still believe in that old thing, I mean, it's kind of woke at this point. And look, Pete Hegseth is not qualified for a million reasons. He is like has no experience with the like seriously serious experience in the military. He wants to get rid of women and people of color. He thinks the military is too woke. I mean, what's interesting about this moment as trans rights, but also women's rights are being trampled. The military is being called, if you've been paying attention to the narrative, being called woke in the last year because they are still providing health care. They are still making sure that service members have gender affirming care, can get an abortion if they need it. That's why they're being called woke right now. To say nothing of the fact that they, Lloyd Austin's black. Fuck Lloyd Austin too, but you know what I'm saying. But I did appreciate going back to the meat and potatoes of why Pete Hegseth is a piece of shit. Like, just, it's nice to be like, you know what? You bankrupted 2 veterans organizations that had like less than, a $10 million operating budget. You want to operate the biggest budget on planet Earth. Probably not a good fit. You're continually drunk on the job. You've screamed death to Muslims while being drunk. Not a good fit. But this one was just about character. And I enjoy seeing Democrats still be able to talk about, like, family values and people cheating on their wives as kind of a testament to who that person, like the character of that person. Again, it's not anyone's business, but it does speak to their character.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. I'm looking forward to this opportunity.
Bueno, esto también es Tim Kaine, quien habla español, okay? So hay que escuchar.
Talk. I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
So
again, this is when he assaulted the woman who was tasked with making sure he didn't assault women. She was his chaperone, appointed to his drunk ass to get him safely to his hotel room. She was also staying in that hotel with her husband and their child. She says she gets to his hotel room and passes out and has no memory of what happened. She wakes up and calls her husband. Her husband been frantically searching for her. And she says, I think I've been raped. Now, there was a police report filed. She had bruises on her thighs. There was a non-disclosure agreement and a settlement for an undisclosed amount of money. And it was dropped. He says this was a consensual encounter. So that's what they're talking about. He was married and it was about to be a baby daddy for a woman he was cheating on his wife with.
So you think you are completely cleared because you committed no crime. That's your definition of cleared. You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was,
God, oh, what a slimy predator pastor thing to say. She is a child of God. She's also a child of rape. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like she's not. I'm not alleging that, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like this is on some Woody Allen shit, like, Woody, Mr. Allen, you married your adopted daughter. Isn't that she is a child of God? Like, this is like, her name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth and she's a child of God. Yeah, that's why, when the angel came unto me, I decided I must come onto other things.
And you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges. It was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the marriage I have to this amazing woman behind me.
You've admitted that you had sex at that hotel on October 2017. You said it was consensual. Isn't that correct?
Anything,
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman.
again,
How do you explain your
completely
judgment?
false charges against me.
How do you explain your judgment? I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, these are false charges. What are? Did you have sex or not? You said it was consensual. He's just bringing up your words. I mean, I wish Tim Kaine had like like the article. I wish he could quote it and cite it. These are allegations. I mean, you know.
You fully investigated, and I was completely clear.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been...
Wait. If it had been a sexual assault, is that disqualifying to be defense secretary? Yes or no? Well, if it's a false claim, like, whoa. If it's real, it's disqualifying. He knows he can't say that. He knows what it was. Be a fucking man. You're supposed to be some emblem of masculinity. Be a man. Say yes. Say that would be disqualifying. That's not honorable. Now, again, we've talked about the problem, the epidemic of sexual assault in the military. Epidemic. So if you think about it, it's kind of on brand. Can you imagine being in the military with this fucking guy? Like, I mean, and again, I don't have a lot of people who are in the military, and certainly I don't know a lot of women in the military in my personal life, but like, this is like, something's gonna give. You know what I'm saying? I mean, every few months you hear, not to the degree, but a story like Vanessa Guillen, murdered by a superior after she was stalked and by him for months. She tried to talk to her other superior about it, and she was killed. So, like, imagine if you're a woman in the military and this is your fucking defense secretary, this is your boss. Like, the culture of sexual assault is only going to get worse. I mean, I can't imagine the disgust that service members must feel when they see this, unqualified douchebag this close to power.
Been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
Ooh.
So
hypothetical.
So you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
But you acknowledge,
but you
acknowledge that you cheated on your wife and that you cheated on the woman by whom you had just fathered a child. You have admitted that.
I will allow your words to speak for themselves.
You're not retracting that today. That's good. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be.
But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have.
I love this line of questioning. I know it's super personal, him being like, did you take an oath to your wife at the time to be faithful? Like, he's so unprepared for this. He is so unprepared.
Failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior Jesus.
I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I swear to God. Like, I hope that when the fictitious arsonist is found and caught in Los Angeles, like imagine just being like, I have failed, but I am redeemed by my faith in, like, even Trump doesn't say this. I'm redeemed by my faith in Lord Jesus Christ. Like, okay, cool. Are you redeemed in the eyes of the general public? Are you redeemed in the eyes of the law? I'm sorry. Is it God's law that allows you to get away with sexual assault? Is that what you're trying to say? Your God sounds like a douche. I'm redeemed in the eyes of nobody cares. Shut up. Nobody cares.
In finalizing divorces from your first and second wives, were there non-disclosure agreements in connection with those divorces?
Yes, as there always are. Who hasn't signed a non-disclosure agreement with their exes? I'm a divorced woman. I've got a non-disclosure agreement with my ex-husband, obviously. That's just, you have to hire a lawyer to go through the paperwork, and then you do the non-disclosure agreement. Right? Everybody? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Senator, not that I'm aware of.
If there were, would you agree to release those first and second wives from any confidentiality agreement?
Senator, it's not something I'm aware of.
But if there were, you would agree to release them from a confidentiality agreement?
Senator, that's not my responsibility.
Did you ever engage in any acts of physical violence against any of your wives?
Senator, absolutely not.
But you would agree with me that if someone had committed physical violence against a spouse, that would be disqualifying to serve as Secretary of Defense, correct?
Senator, absolutely not have I ever done that.
You would agree.
Okay. All right, Jock. That's not the question. But you don't worry. You still look cute not understanding it.
That would be a disqualifying offense, would you not?
Senator, you're talking about a hypothetical.
Yeah, that's the whole he is talking about a hypothetical. Is it okay or not? If you be convicted of domestic abuse, is that disqualifying? Yes or no?
I don't think it's a hypothetical. Violence against spouses occurs every day. And if you as a leader are not capable of saying that physical violence against a spouse should be a disqualifying fact for being secretary of the most powerful nation in the world, you're demonstrating an astonishing lack of judgment. Ooh. The incident in Monterey led to a criminal charge, a criminal investigation, a private settlement, and a cash payment to the woman who filed the complaint. And there was also a non-disclosure agreement, correct?
It was a confidential settlement agreement off of a nuisance lawsuit.
Right. During an interview, you claimed that you settled the matter.
He really took pains to memorize that. That was a confidential nuisance lawsuit. Nailed it.
Because you were worried that if it became public, it might hurt your career. Do you maintain that you were blackmailed?
Senator, I maintain that false claims were made against me. And ultimately,
your attorney
those
used
false
the
claims,
phrase.
I had the opportunity to attest my innocence in those false claims.
But you didn't reveal any of this to President Trump or the transition team as they were considering you to be nominated for Secretary of Defense. You didn't reveal the action. You didn't reveal the criminal complaint. You didn't reveal the criminal investigation. You didn't reveal the settlement. You didn't reveal the cash payment. Why didn't you inform the commander-in-chief and the transition team of this very relevant event?
Senator, I've appreciated every part of the process with the transition team. They have been open and honest with me. We've had great conversations between the two of us. And I appreciate the opportunity that President-elect Trump has given me.
You chose not to reveal this, right? Because you knew it would hurt your chances. So you chose not to reveal this really important thing to the commander-in-chief and the transition team because you were worried about your chances rather than trying to be candid with the future president of the United States.
It's not like he would have cared. You could have admitted to it. And he'd be like, yeah, who hasn't? But no, again, the Republican MO is never admit to it. I never saw before in my life. I'm just going to now pay $900 million out to her after having lost 2 lawsuits against her, and just continue defaming her, even though I keep on losing money. But what's fun about Pete is that if he does ever start defaming, he has the biggest budget on earth to do all the payouts. So, Senator, I would not worry, okay? Because that hush money will only get bigger. So I will have access to, the funds. And so that will be, hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And that will be directed to paying out all of the people who are going to come forward and attempt to blackmail me. The most blackmailable cabinet in American history, at least that we know of, right? All right, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is the most I think he's so nasal because of all, I mean, brown nosers are very nasal, right? They just got a backlog. It's a Bolsonaro level of shit up your nose. And so he's just, I don't know what it is about these silver spoon Floridians, but him and DeSantis, they're just such little, they're like Florida pissy bitches, and all they want to do is go to war with Venezuela and Iran and just let them do it.
It used to be that
It's Chris Murphy.
Somebody with these big financial business interests would come into government and take actions like setting up a blind trust or divestment in order to make sure there was no connection between their personal financial interests and the business they were conducting in government. But President Trump has just done the opposite, right? Over the last 8 years, while he was in office and since he's been out of office, he and his family have become more deeply dependent on revenue from governments in the Middle East. During his last presidency, Middle East interests sent about $10 million to Trump properties.
So this is Chris Murphy being like, a little bit of a conflict of interest given how much, how are you going to position yourself vis-a-vis all of the foreign governments that want to buy a piece of Donald Trump and the American people, and, want to build, AI data centers in Arizona, as the Emirati billionaire wants to. How much does this impact your ability to do diplomacy, to be Secretary of State, when the executive office is open for business?
After he left office, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who was his primary Middle East envoy, was handed $2 billion in investment by the Saudis, even though a Saudi investment board said the investment was a bad business decision. That investment actually comes up for renewal in 2026.
Okay, but Burisma, am I right? Anyone Burisma? Remember Burisma? No, we don't. He was on the phone. Biden was on the phone.
Giving the Saudis massive leverage over the Trump family. And then
Don't worry. The Saudis already have leverage over us, okay? It's called oil. It's fine. They leverage it over Biden, and Biden's like, oh, I love you, sir. Very good. It's almost as if switching to renewable energy would also end not just our dependence on foreign oil. We're producing more oil than we've ever have in this country. It would reduce our dependence on despots and psychos and authoritarians and murderers. That'd be cool. And Saudi Arabia generally. Oh, God, this answer is really annoying.
Matters worse, right after the election, the Trump organization said that in this term, the president-elect's second term, it would drop its previous prohibition on doing new deals in the Middle East with private foreign companies aligned with foreign governments. So the Trump organization is going to be signing new business deals in the Middle East with private companies that have connections to foreign governments at the very moment that you are going to be conducting sensitive diplomacy in these countries. That's just extraordinary. Never before in the history of this country has a president been, literally receiving cash from foreign governments and from foreign companies that are backed by foreign governments in the middle of their term. If you or I had done this as senators, we would be in violent violation of Senate ethics rules. That's not permitted on the Foreign Relations Committee. And so I guess my question to you is a pretty simple one. Do you see how this fundamentally compromises your diplomatic efforts? Do you have an issue, or will you raise an issue with the president?
No.
About his growing financial connection with the governments that you're going to be negotiating with?
Well, first of all, I am neither authorized nor in any position to give you sort of any insights into any of these arrangements you've pointed out. You mentioned Jared Kushner as an example. He's a private citizen, happens to be a Floridian. I don't know what, if any, engagement he has in the work.
Ugh, whoa. He happens to be a Floridian. He's a proud private citizen and a Floridian. Yeah, man, so was fucking Hunter Biden during the whole Burisma bullshit made up scandal. Again, I don't, it's so ridiculous. I'm a proud Floridian. If he was Californian, I hope he dies in a fire, but he's a Floridian and I can't comment to any of that. But in other words, no, I would.
What's going on now? I can tell you what I know. Obviously, I'm not in the State Department yet, but I can tell you as an example, the president's envoy to that region, who was charged, Steve Witkoff, who was charged with being an envoy towards reaching an accommodation between the Israelis and the Saudis, has been working cooperatively and together with the Biden administration. And in fact, I dare to say that all involved deserve credit for the ceasefire that the chairman's just announced. But Steve Witkoff's been a critical component of it, and he has been involved in it from day one. I think the broader consideration about whether we want to see a Saudi-Israeli mutual recognition and relationship would be one of the most historic developments in the history of the region. All the factors we've discussed here today. It would be, and one of the impediments to it has been this conflict and the ongoing conflict and the lack of a ceasefire. I also think it's going to be important for the Saudis and others to be participants in post-conflict stabilization efforts in Gaza and beyond. So all I can tell you is that what I've said from the very beginning, from the opening statement, and that is our foreign policy is going to be driven, as the President's made abundantly clear, by whether some action makes America is in the interest of the United States and our national security.
This would it would hit so much harder if Chris Murphy also weren't part of the party and that just gave $8 billion to Israel. Like, it would hit a lot harder to be like that. Hey, Donald Trump's personally enriching himself. And we have to actually exercise caution when dealing with governments in that region. And on and on and on. It's like it would just hit a lot harder if the Israeli lobby weren't just fucking littered throughout Washington with Democrats and Republicans alike. But the whole idea of Saudi Arabia and Israel, they really want to come to the table. They've been working covertly together to undermine Iran for a very long time. They undermine Iran and undermine the United States. Their goal is to get the United States into a war with Iran. That is the goal, but they cannot outwardly look like they're working together because, of course, Saudi is like the loathsome Muslims and whatnot, and they supported terror groups and yada yada, even though not the ones we're actually supportive of the terror groups that they've supported, so that's chill. But they're in lockstep. They're part of the whole Abraham Accords normalization with Israel. Normalization with Israel means absolutely diddly, and especially because the biggest issue is the Palestinian people. You cannot normalize with Israel when Palestinian people are still in limbo, when their lands are being encroached on, when there is no solution, be it 2-state, 1-state. The solution has simply been ethnic cleansing. That'd be an amazing step. That way we can work together and all, focus on the real enemy, which is Iran, for no reason. Let's move on to Pam Bondi. I mean, he's going to get confirmed, right? All these people are going to get confirmed. I think Pam may be the one could be a little iffy here, but even still, I think it's going to happen for her. And it doesn't matter because like a recess, or not a recess appointment, but like an interim appointment would just be like a weirder fucking person. You could just have an interim. If any of these people don't make it, Trump could just have an interim appointee just be like extended and extended and extended and extended. So you're going to get one of these dunces however way you slice it. But this was the intro to Pam Bondi's Judiciary Committee hearing. Again, Pam Bondi for Attorney General. Replacing Matt Gaetz, who I think would have been a lot more fun, just on a pure entertainment value level. Also would just be like a hat trick of, predators. Like, I just feel like you needed the one who sleeps with 17-year-olds and the pedophile. Like, I just felt like that just completed the set. It's kind of like a collect them all type Pokemon situation. If you're watching, remember to subscribe right now to this channel. Also, if you want to support this show, my favorite way to do that is by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room gets you access to all of our bonus episodes, which run every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you want to watch them back, we talked all about all the celebrities losing their minds over the wildfires. It was fun. What else? We did a bunch of stuff. So get access to that. Support this show, this little labor of love. Again, it's a small but mighty team. Here we are. Your support truly keeps the lights on. But let's get into this.
Client list is full of controversial clients, some of which stand to benefit directly from having their former lobbyist in charge of the DOJ. Over the last 5 years, she represented 30 clients, from large corporations and contractors to a foreign government. In addition, during her earlier time as Florida Attorney General, a recent New York Times review found several pieces of evidence that seem to demonstrate her general tendency to assist corporate allies and corporate lobbyists' strong belief that Bondi was exceptionally accessible to lobbyists and amenable to the agendas of their corporate clients. Bondi had.
And while we're at it, let's talk about everyone else who's been amenable to their corporate clients in DC. Like, I love that this is kind of what they're getting her on, and it's like, yeah, but so is everybody else. But it's good. It's good. It's good.
The agendas of their corporate clients. Bondi had a large number of domestic clients, but today I'll highlight just two. Geo Group, the nation's largest private prisons company, and Amazon, an e-commerce giant. Bondi was registered to lobby the first Trump White House in 2019 for Geo Group. Both DOJ and DHS inspectors general have been critical of prison management of Geo Group, and they stand to profit substantially if the Trump administration's new immigration detention and deportation policies result in filling empty or underutilized beds in their facilities. As a real precedent for this concern, Public Citizen did research back in 2019, which showed Geo Group's contract dollars rose by over 40% in the first 2 years of the Trump term. Now to Amazon, they're of course
but he's a right-wing populist or whatever.
Very well-known tech company. Bondi was registered to lobby for them in 2020. In recent years, they've been investigated by the DOJ over injury rates and workplace safety at their warehouses, been referred to the DOJ by a bipartisan group of lawmakers for potential criminal obstruction, and had their robo-taxi unit federally investigated over safety concerns. In addition, DOJ and the FTC recently reached a settlement with Amazon regarding children's privacy violations via Alexa.
Ugh.
And of course, Amazon also
children's privacy violations via Alexa. Gross.
Receives multi-billion-dollar contracts from multiple federal agencies, ranging from DoD to NASA. Beyond these examples of potential domestic entanglements, Bondi was registered as a foreign agent, lobbying on behalf of foreign governments and officials. To highlight just two, Bondi worked for both the Embassy of Qatar and a Kuwaiti investment firm.
Interesting. Worked for Qatar. I know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't work for Qatar, but Al Jazeera is a partially government-funded outlet. This is a good moment. Look, if she's attorney general and she advocated, she lobbied on behalf of the private prison group, Geo Group, it is interesting that she also has this to say about the 14th Amendment. This is Senator Alex Padilla asking Pam Bondi about whether she believes in rescinding birthright citizenship and whether she is familiar with the 14th Amendment. If birthright citizenship is rescinded, it is part of, again, this broad program to sweep up immigrants and people, children of immigrants, right? It's rescinding the birthright status, rescinding citizenship to, let's be real, brown people.
The 14th Amendment. Now, you've testified repeatedly to this committee that you will uphold the laws of this country and defend the Constitution of the United States. Do you believe birthright citizenship is the law of the land, and will you defend it regardless of a child born in the United States, regardless of their parents' immigration status?
Senator, I will study birthright citizenship. I would love to meet with you regarding birthright citizenship.
I will study birthright citizenship. You study the Constitution. The birthright citizenship is in the Constitution.
Can I answer the
serve
question?
As the Attorney General of the United States, and you still need to study the 14th Amendment of the Constitution? That is not helping me have more confidence in your ability to do this job. What other immigration-related question, and I'll steer clear of the
I
Constitution
have one
and the
regarding
law.
that.
On the 14th
Okay, so
Amendment.
that's-
Now, you've testified repeatedly.
That's terrifying and important, but also, again, and not that it really matters, but you know, she's an election denier. She's a consistent election denier. Obviously, here's Adam Schiff. We hate him. We love him. He's the worst.
Also requires you, if you're going to be a good attorney general, to be able to tell hard truths to the president. So my questions now are, can you tell hard truths to the president? So let me start with an easy truth that you could speak to the president. Can you tell us, can you tell him that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? Can you say that? Do you have the independence to say that? Do you have the gravitas, the stature, the intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election? Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I
No,
won't
I'm just
do it.
asking you a simple
I
question.
won't play
If you can
politics
speak truth
with any
to
ongoing
power. So
investigation,
let me ask you another.
like you did
let me-
leaking your
let me ask
colleague
you,
Devin Nunes's memo.
If you can't answer the question, let me ask you a different, what should be a simple truth, not a hard one. Was there massive fraud affecting the result of the 2020 election? Yes or no?
Senator, I'm glad you asked that question. If you'll let me answer what I saw in Pennsylvania.
No, I asked a simple question about massive fraud.
I can only tell you what I saw in Pennsylvania.
I know you want to answer a different question, but my question is, can you tell us whether there was massive fraud affecting the results of the 2020 election? Yes or no? Was there
I
or
can
was there
tell
not?
you what I saw when I went
That's
as an
not my,
advocate
that's
to
not
the
my
campaign.
question. So you can't answer that question. You can't speak that even easy truth to us, let alone to the president. It
Okay,
also
and there
requires
was multiple lines of questioning like that. Okay, first of all, big Vicky Vale energy. Anyone else feeling that? She is wearing a pinstripe outfit. This is very like Batman. She's got a pinstripe suit on. Like, no disrespect to Kim Basinger, because, you know, obviously the goddess, but like, doesn't this feel just like Vicky Vale, like, never found Batman, she found Donald Trump, and like she's just so, it's so 80s. It's just like so ridiculously 80s. Anyway, so yeah, that's Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi also said that she was not aware that Kash Patel of the CIA, which she would be overseeing, had any enemies list. You know, it's just a deep Rolodex. She's a total election denier. Of course she's an election denier. This is how an actual coup happens. This is how elections completely get thrown out the window. Then there's Kristi Noem. Let's remember, dog killer Kristi Noem, who is being tapped for Homeland Security Secretary to carry out said mass deportation scheme. Again, you got to get everyone involved. You got to pave the so-called legal way, revoke citizenship, and then pass these fucking bills like the Lake and Riley bill that just got passed. Maybe we'll talk about it on Tuesday, that Democrats voted for. We need to be on them, like something that rhymes with on them. Here's Kristi Noem.
What I would say is the cybersecurity and intelligence elements that we have within the Department of Homeland Security have been incredibly siloed. They have not communicated with other intelligence agencies like they should and partnered. INA has some interaction, but not enough. And we also need to have CISA have interaction with the FBI, CIA to make sure they're working together to stop these types of threats and identify when they're growing among our citizens and how they become radicalized.
This is about how people are being radicalized. So again, this is also about Kristi Noem overseeing Homeland Security. You can imagine, you know, they're working with the CIA. They're going to be working with like, they're going to be the ones who are going to be like, you protested for Palestine, you're wearing a keffiyeh, you know, we got to figure out how you've been radicalized. So, okay, I'm trying to find a good. Oh, this is fun. Richard Blumenthal, let's bring it full circle. Richard Blumenthal asking about whether it's okay to withhold aid from California because of you don't like the state because woke or whatever, or DEI.
I assume you will agree with me that withholding disaster relief by President Trump or any other chief executive of the United States is a violation of his duty and of law.
Well, Senator, leadership has consequences. And looking at the tragedy that's happening in
I want to
California
ask you
is
yes or no, with all due respect. I assume you will agree with me.
The answer is no. Leadership has consequences. Elections have consequences. Sorry, your turn to burn. Guys, it's been a 2-hour Frantastic Friday. If you're not a member or a patron, a patron, ¿qué estás haciendo? Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room, or you can join as a member here on YouTube or over on twitch.tv/FrannyFio. And thank you so much for everyone who has supported the show. Cooking Edibles Dragon for your super sticker. Again, smash that like button. We are going to be live on Monday, the day of reckoning, the day the bad one assumes office. Oh, yes. Monday at noon, people. Apparently, it's going to be cold in DC, so they're going to move indoors. But I say elections have consequences. Let them be outside. I say let Bernie Sanders arrive just in one giant mitten. All mitten. Nothing else. So we'll be streaming live then on Tuesday. We're also streaming on Monday and on Tuesday. Emma Vigeland is going to be on the show, in addition to Bill Fletcher, author and leftist thinker. I'm very excited to have Bill back. Bill back better. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we're going to do a little bit of a postmortem on Joe Biden. How'd he do? How'd he do? Not just like where he gets his terminology, how'd he do, D, but how'd he do? We'll look back at that. Thank you guys so much in advance. You can always send this show a super sticker. You can always send a little bit of love. You can tip the show TBR-live on Cash App, TBR Live, or TBR-live on Venmo, TBR Live on Cash App. Until Monday, oh boy, I will see you soon. Have an okay weekend. Be safe. Do something for yourself. You're great. Bye-bye.